What up, everyone? Switch Double here. And, well, it's Monday, and I usually don't stream on Mondays, but it's like, I was like, what the hell not? So, yeah, I thought I was a little bit bored, and I didn't know what to do, and so I was like, so why not do a stream today? And since I didn't do much of a stream this weekend, due to some, well, circumstances and nothing bad to me, though, it's just, I just didn't feel much doing the actual stream this last weekend, so I was like, why not do it today and just pay up for what well, say, I wanted to do the stream, so yeah, I was like, since I doing the stream last weekend, so I was like, why not do today? At least since I'm bored and I had nothing else to do. And people like, wait, you can do your stories. That's good point. But lately, I haven't done much stories and kind of lost inspiration for a while. But it happens. Since I recently actually made uh, not a true love, true friend, but a true sibling story. It's about Cream, and there is actually another thing that I did see one of my comments for the past few days. Um, some of my viewers, me, are familiar with my latest audio series, Journey to Attical Land. There was actually that someone who did posted comments each time those chapters was uploaded. But then, only about a couple of days ago, same person asked if I would do a sequel to that series, but continued it from Hitch and Sunny, as if that so that they will be the next rulers of Equestria. Like like I don't even know if they would be like king, queen, prince, or princess. And I was like, well, I never even thought of doing a sequel to one of my own uh, author series. Even though I actually at the time I was already planning for an upcoming new author series, but this one it's yeah, that was actually so surprising. I never in my life thought that I would even do a sequel to another audio series. But I was like, I do see potential in that, but I can't say exactly when it will happen. Just I need some figure out exactly more details on that if it's gonna happen. Like as we all know, in Equestria, Celestia and Luna they were only princess. But you may ask, if Celestia or Luna had got married, would they still retain the title as princess, or would they have ascended to a new title of queen? That is not a thing. Usually in our world, when I was a princess, instead of getting married to a prince or like a crown prince, she would automatically be the next queen. But I don't know for a fact if that works the same in Equestria. I just don't know. In a cozy hard night by night, can you have very hard to be 1 month pregnant? Yeah, I probably can do that. I haven't even worked on that one yet. I did totally forgot about it. A lot of things has happened actually, so sometimes my memory is pretty short. My apology to that. So as for the next audio series, well, I don't know if even if it's Celeste, even if Sunny and Hitch would get married, would they be the next rulers of the Equestria? That's another thing. We know for a fact Twilight was the last official ruler of the Equestria until the magic used to disappear, vanished. Who took control of the country or the kingdom after her? That's a simple answer. No one. No one didn't take care of Equestria as a whole United Kingdom. We know for a fact that Zephyr Heights had its own monarch family. Bridlewood, I don't think they actually had any particular like king or anything. More like presumably that they have like a council, that they have elected leaders, members to rule, take decide who's going to be. Well, maybe it was a council. It could have been perhaps even say, I don't know, a mayor. But what about Maritime Bay? We know for a fact they did have Hitch as a sheriff and Sprout as a vice deputy or deputy sheriff. But there was nothing as mentioned of or directly or indirectly mentioned or referenced to a mayor or a council or anything. But I presume that must have been some form of leadership in the town, because if there aren't anyone that is just like a leader, who is the one who gives it the maintain the peace? I mean, even though Maritime doesn't seem to be that big, I would estimate maybe perhaps around just 100, maybe 200 ponies that lives in the major part of the city. That is, I think, at least a couple of hundred ponies that live in Maritime Bay. But there are no signs of any particular buildings of, leadership, mayors, council, or anything. It is very unlikely that just the sheriff and his deputy sheriff were being older, but being enough to maintain the order in their city. Think about it. Hitch, we know for a fact he is the mayor, he is the sheriff, but he's the only one that's in the sheriff's station now. After Sprout's attempt to take over and almost starting a war, he was demoted and fired. So Hitch had taken over everything by himself. Perhaps even though with some help from Zip, but is it possible that he can maintain the entire order and peace in Maritime Bay? I doubt it. I really doubt it. I mean, if there are like over 200 ponies that live in that small town, and one single individual, just one, is it possible for just one person, or in this case, one pony, to maintain peace? If you remember from the first episode when uh, in Make You Mark, how Rose Posey posed as some sort of kind of a small role as a threat. How did that chaos, when suddenly this giant hole appeared in the ground, or when the magic is somehow disappearing again, like the Pegasus were unable to fly, and Earth ponies were not, well, anything like it. Is it possible just one single individual can maintain all that control in order? No, it's not possible. So I think, who is the one that actually is the main leader of the entire place? There was only one building that had quite significant impact on the entire city or the whole town, and that was Cantor Logic, where Sprout's mother owned the factory. That was the only quite significant building that was standing out in the entire town. I mean, this big square building on top of the hill. That was the only building was quite standing out. If ponies from other parts of Equestria would walk in Maritime Bay, seeing that big square building, they might actually thinking that is some sort of government building. But they will learn eventually, no, that's just a simple factory. There is no signs, because if you look around in Maritime Bay, most buildings look just simple homes, like small shops to the movie theater, and nothing that it seems to be opposing as high position governmental building. Not like a mayor's office or governor's office, nothing. There's nothing any even more to that. But there's only one place though, Separate Heights. Compared to Merton Bay and Separate Heights may actually possess, I mean, other from that they in fact now have their own monarch or the royal family. But they at least had huge population. If I estimate, more than a few hundred, maybe perhaps even a thousand or more. They at least have one central government of their own, a leadership. But there was a brief time where the royal family lost their power, but that was after the was exposed that they were unable to fly. But that was before even the magic returned. But what about the other places? Like Mirtan Bay. We don't even know if in fact if they even have any formal central leadership, like a mayor or anything. They never actually say anything about it, like no reference to it, not directly or indirectly. But if they would to somehow choose a mayor, who would be the perfect candidate? Or at least policy town, who would they choose to elect as the next mayor? I wanted to say Sunny. Police were like, Sunny should run for as the mayor. After all, she's an alicorn, and alicorns in the past was as a symbol for leadership. But the fact is, even if she would have been pointed out or at least asked to be it, I don't think that Sunny would take up the duty as a mayor. And that's I don't think at least. But there are many other places that we know that prior to G, there were some um, like many other places did have their own formal central government or maybe like a mayor or something like Appaloosa had its own mayor. At Ponyville, they had mayor as their leader, as their town leader. Even though in the comics, she did lose the next election to be the next mayor to Filthy Rich. Diamond Dad was the mayor in the comics for a while, but I don't think that should be considered as part of canon since yeah, I'm just saying this, it's just how the things are. But like I say, what about other big places? Clydesdale, that's a major city. They should have some form of their own centralized leadership, like a mayor or something. But there are still some places that I don't know. But then, in G5, what happened to most of the places that we know of from G4, like Manhattan, Clydesdale, Ponyville, Canterlot? I can say right now, two of those places literally had confirmed to exist. We know for a fact Canterlot is in ruins. Only a Discord lives underneath the city. The second one, you may think, oh, he's going to talk about Ponyville. No. Ponyville, unfortunately, we don't know anything if it's still intact, if it's even still inhabited by anyone, or if it's abandoned. We don't know that. The second place that we do know is Clydesdale. In one of the most recent comics about it from G5, yeah, apparently they're still printing comic books from the G5 despite the series had ended. But regardless, Clydesdale was actually very, very much intact. In one episode, Tell Your Tale, there was this one episode, there was this mysterious thing that happened. All the rainbows, like the natural rainbows, or anything that's rainbow colored, like could be like a flag, ice cream, candy, you name it. All of that suddenly removed. There was like it was something that sucked away the rainbow colored items away from the item that they were attached to, like an ice cream. And it turned out all those end up in this among the clouds. And we've seen this huge, like a huge horn that was sucking in the rainbows. People were immediately thinking, wait, is this the weather part of the weather factory from the weather factory in Cloudsdale? Many assumed that, even myself, but that was debunked. Turned out Cloudsdale was very much still intact as a whole city. The city looked as it was have been just recently abandoned when they found it discovered. The fact is, the whole town looked pristine condition, even though it was like a few hundred years after it was abandoned. But the city itself looked very pristine. They even had this museum about the Wonderbolts. This is actually was a reference and scene in one of the most recent comics. The fact is, in this particular museum, there's like a photos of or portraits of past Wonderbolts. One of them, you may think, Rainbow Dash. No, it's not Rainbow Dash, but actually Soren. And that is the strange part. But there is another thing that's I'm really thinking, wait a minute, this is really strange. Because in the scenes in the particular comic, there is Wonderbolt outfit far different from the previous ones that we have seen. In a G4 episode when they talk about the Wonderbolt's history from the foundation and all the way throughout it, but they showing the different costumes or outfits they used, like among the leaders and such. And of course, the uniform they had when Rainbow was part of the Wonderbolts and when she became the next leader. But this particular outfit stands out way much. And it even had a title underneath, Orbital Suit or something. This particular Wonderbolt suit, it was designed, at least this particular Wonderbolt costume or outfit was made to be in orbit, in space. I mean, I don't even know if this that is supposed to be, I don't know, like some sort of joke, or if that's an Easter egg, or that it actually is an actual spacesuit. You may ask, how the heck did they even reach orbit in G4 when they don't even have any such technology back then? The clearest, I mean, in G5, they had cell phones, they had computers, social media of all things. But then in G4, it's like a couple of hundred years back before that. Apparently, it's sometime during the Twilight's rule. Space travel was apparently developed. But how? Or at least they only like the spacesuit of a Wonderbolt. I was I'm still speechless of that to find out that there's apparently a spacesuit or some sort of outfit for the Wonderbolts. But before you may thinking, before you ask, is this also a spacesuit that literally made the Wonderbolts or ponies travel beyond their own planet in space? I don't know for a fact if that is the case. Because this particular Wonderbolt spacesuit or space outfit they had, apparently they developed, it looked similar to the very early development of space travel in 1960s, way before when the moon landing happened. This was like in early 60s and mid 1960s during the development of the Apollo program, of course. But it kind of looks similar. But then I wonder, how did they even get up there? if this was before the magic disappeared, did they build some sort of spaceship that was able to launch them into space? Maybe. I mean, it's just, even though that was never referenced or mentioned in the actual G4 series or anything, but in the comics, don't know. But is it possible for space travel though in G5? Um, I mean, it's possible considering they have developed more advanced technology with computers and all such. But since they had to think of one thing, that is a major thinking. Since in G4 ending and the beginning of G5 was that been a few hundred years, we're thinking if the had magic didn't vanish, we consider that there is at least a few hundred years in between each generation. Then it would have been much more spacecraft, and they probably colonized the moon, they're going to colonize some other planets in the system. But we don't even know. And even if they wore those spacesuits in the G4 as they were present at the Wonderbolt Museum in Cloudsdale, it's not really known if they even colonized space or if there was in like an early developmental space program, and then suddenly that the Pony space program was shut down shortly before the magic was gone. But you may be thinking, even if they were magic or even if they were a space program, and just at the time when just before the magic vanished, the Pony kind was at one point was united as just one single society. But as we all know, Opaline causes rift once again among the ponies. There was this distrust among them. So you may be thinking, even if the ponies did develop their own space program, did all of them work together as one? Or who was it that the fact that developed this? I mean, we know for a fact that the ponies that can only be a Wonderbolt is Pegasus and Alicorns, and perhaps even Griffins. But if the Pegasus are the ones that literally build the space program, that would make some sense. After all, the spacesuit is located in their own museum in the Wonderbolts and in Cloudsdale. I don't know for a fact if the space program was it in the early development, like say it's for NASA in the early 1960s. For NASA, for example, even in the beginning, they can only send people in orbit that they can do. Then they were able to construct a rocket that could send them to the moon and back. But since then, but that is almost compared to the Pegasus or Equestria's, space program. If this thing happened to develop in like a space program, where the magic is gone, did they need it, the space program, or what happened to it? I can only imagine that the Pegasus used their wings in order to construct the rocket piece by piece on their platform or something. But when the magic disappeared, they lost their ability to fly. Sure, they could still perhaps build a space rocket, but using platforms. But at the same time, we don't even know if the ponies in Equestria actually develop a space. Even though there is a spacesuit or some sort of a space outfit in the Wonderbolts Museum in Cloudsdale, that's only happened to be seen in a G5 comics. So I don't even know if they develop a space program or anything, but if they managed to build a space program or to develop a space program, I don't even know if it was only the Pegasus that made their own, or if single pony kind worked together to work as one. But like I said, this was around the time probably where this mistrust among the pony kind was being really taken part. So even if the unicorns worked along with the Pegasus, they would may actually be a handful of unicorns, but would they trust the Pegasus? Hard to say. I mean, it's really hard to say in that part. If you remember in the first Heartswarming Eve episode with the G4, when the main six were taking part of this as the roles found of Equestria, they mentioned in that particular episode how the ponies were divided long before Opalainen happened. That they worked together, but they didn't trust each other, even though they were forced to demand to do things for others. The same thing is for this. So even if they were to find, let's say, what if the new main six were to randomly discover an ancient or very old abandoned space, I don't know, a Pegasus space launch pad or anything, or like a research station, would they be able to use launching in space? I don't think so. But I just don't know. Honestly, I I really don't know much about what would happen for that. It's quite of a that is a quite of a story if they happen. But then again, I saw that it was only in a comic, but they had the spacesuit for the Wonderbolts. I was stunned when I saw it because I didn't expecting to see that. I thought maybe a new design of more more developers an outfit from the Wonderbolts, but a suit or at least an outfit that was able to that could help them to go in. I know if it's like a deep space or just in Earth or in the orbit. That's that was surprising to say at least. But at the same, I don't even know for a fact if that's supposed to be some sort of joke or that was actually developed. But then some people or some fans within the fandom may even ask, when exactly were Cloudsdale abandoned? Was it abandoned long after the magic disappeared? Actually, no. That's there is actually in this particular comic series, Rainbow Dash, an older Rainbow Dash. If you remember when she was in the last in the last problem episode, where we see an older Rainbow Dash with its leather jacket, she happens to appear in that comic, part of a hologram. Apparently, they developed this hologram technology or something by Crystal or something. I don't know, sure. But Rainbow explained that from that this was the final recording of her. She said something like, after this recording, she and the rest of the Pegasus will leave Cloudsdale because Twilight were going to collect all the magic and store them in the Unity crystals. When that happened, the Pegasus lost ability to fly, unicorns lost ability to perform magic. So yeah, it was one of the hard times. But then, what happened? Well, at that moment, the Wonderbolts was forgotten because even when they went, even when Sip, Pip, and Sunny went to Cloudsdale, Sip had never heard of the Wonderbolts. You may think, wait, how is it even possible if he even heard them? Because in the movie they made and front in the Mega Mark, there were references or even posters of the Wonderbolts at the old stadium or the old studio or the old station. They were literally a poster of the Wonderbolt in the old Zephyr High station, but she never even knew about it. Is it possible that the Pegasus who live in Zephyr Heights has no knowledge about the Wonderbolts because they stopped talking about them and simply over a, after a few hundred years, if no one talks about something, the knowledge just disappeared, and if no one even write it down, it happens. Because here's the thing: if you live in one culture and then you don't have any writing system or like a writing language, even if you do talk, telling stories, pass it down from one generation to the next without writing them down, that would eventually be lost. I can give some example. The Vikings. The Vikings, when they told us stories about the old Norse gods like Odin, Thor, and all that, those stories passed down orally tradition passed down from generation to next. It wasn't more than 200 years after the Viking Age had ended when the stories about the old Norse gods was written down. 200 years after the Viking Age was over. So, but you may thinking, or even ask, how did they find Cloudsdale? Well, this it might be a bit surprised, but Sip, she was a temporarily queen of Zephyr Heights while her mother was away for a while. And then suddenly this bad storm happened. A pretty bad storm over Zephyr Heights. It didn't stop. In fact, it was a snowstorm. The six was literally forced to take every single pony they can find to the castle or the palace. The palace had their own generators that could provide heat. But that was only for a time though, because matter of time before those generators, and they even had um, open fireplaces in the palace that could reheat the rooms that were had. But this storm, it didn't seem to be stopping anytime soon, and if it didn't have stopped, it would have buried the whole Zephyr Heights in feet after feet of snow. You may think like 6 feet. Um, I may have to say more like the not double, but maybe I don't know, say maybe 10 times more, like 6 feet, but 10 times like 60 feet. So, or I don't even know, but yeah, that's so. They found this old airship which they worked to repair. So Sip, Pip, and Sunny, they flew up in a storm, and when they were above the storm clouds, they found this place. They at first didn't know exactly what it were until they found the sign said Cloudsdale. Apparently, this was this mythical place of Cloudsdale. At least the name Cloudsdale as a city where the Pegasus once lived did pass on from one generation to the next. And apparently it was actually Queen Haven who told her daughters about Cloudsdale. But as I said, it was amazing. At least now we had the confirmation that Cloudsdale is intact. And it was actually the weather factory in Cloudsdale was causing the snowstorm in the first place. They needed to stop it. So Rainbow Dash in a hologram explained how to do it. But since this knowledge, well, apparently was lost to Zephyr High's ponies. That is until now, though. But then eventually they were able to stop this factory to be just simple that, and they literally moved. Yeah, you heard me right. They moved Cloudsdale in the sky from above Zephyr Heights to a new place, and they literally dropped an anchor, like a ship's anchor, to the ground to have it remain on the spot. But that's not the only thing. Even though we're seeing a portrait of Soren in the Wonderbolt Museum, and of course a hologram of Rainbow Dash, but even a hologram of one another legendary Pegasus, Flash Max. Even he was explained in a part of the museum about what happened or what this place is. And there was even a statue of Sonambula, another of the old pillars of Equestria. And and when we saw her, the statue, read the name, she didn't even recognize her. She never she literally said that she didn't even know who she were. And it makes sense. I mean, it's possible the understanding why that Sunny never even heard of Sonambula is because after a few hundred years, with the Pegasus was keeping for themselves, Earth pony for themselves, unicorns for themselves, since there was such much distrust and paranoia between them, it's more understanding why that some of the Pegasus legends that only the Pegasus may heard of, that stories may actually not even be present in Earth ponies, their community, or vice versa. And I was like, it makes sense. If you've been lived separately as once a united society, but then once again split, it makes perfect sense. Even though they may thinking, what about libraries in Zephyr Heights or in Maritime Bay? Sure, they may have libraries, but not a guarantee that they maintain any information about other legendary ponies. But there is that. And all the main six from the old main six that or any G4 characters that literally made an appearance in G5, either from Twilight, Luna, and Celestia, for a brief moment, there's actually is there is actually another one. Even though technically there wasn't actually her, but it was a portrait of Treehugger in Maritime Bay's Art Museum. Yeah, you remember right. Of the one of the old characters of the from G4, apparently Treehugger was the actually part of the art exhibit. I was wow. I was like, okay, that's quite surprising. But even of the other characters, Discord, he's also another G4 character that's pretty much still around. But when I talked about earlier about Ponyville as what happened to it, well, we don't know for the fact that if this small town is still there or even anything. But there's one place. There's only one place that was nearby of the G4 of Ponyville that was literally visited in the G5 comics, among the very first comic books actually. You may be thinking, Sweet Double Acres. Nope, it was not Sweet Double Acres. It was actually Fluttershy's cottage. The cottage was still there, intact, but abandoned. But they literally found this big crystal, and this crystal had a holographic message from her about Discord. She talked about what happened after during a time of the Twilight's rule of this mysterious pony showing up and all. At the time, they didn't mention there was like they didn't even know if there was as talked about Opaline, since at the time they never heard of the name Opaline. They didn't even knew about that she even existed. This was also before Misty became part of the friendship. So if Fluttershy's cottage is still there, even after a few hundred years, is it possible that the other places like Double Acres might still be there, intact or partially intact? Who knows? The board actually is. Even before G5 was even officially gonna be released, they were actually the discussion about even before production if they want to focus on a whole new universe, new land, no characters, no. But they decided to focus on for G4, for the Questia, to explore places that hasn't even been explored yet. I was like, okay, at least that is positive. But that didn't even happen, though. I mean, seriously, that didn't even happen. Well, except for when I went to Starlight Ridge, when he first encountered Allura. Master is one of them. But in the continued of if the series had continued, if the series of Tell Your Tale had continued without being abruptly ended, thanks very much for that, bro. Jeez. But there was actually one small thing here. In the continue of Tell Your Tale, it was actually some episodes that I think from the second special episode was actually complete, but somehow was never uploaded at all. But there is actually one YouTuber that literally had posted videos of all the ones that's supposed to be uploaded, including somehow this particular individual YouTuber managed somehow, and let's say somehow, was able to gain hands of the fourth special episode of Tell Your Tale. Yeah, because as I said, last year there was supposed to be four special episodes that were supposed to be released in separately each month. Because the first one was in earlier. The second was supposed to be in it was the 22nd August, but that didn't happen. And the third was supposed to be in October, and the fourth sometime in November. But those three other ones never was published at all. But somehow, this particular YouTuber was able to get the hands of the fourth special 25 minutes long episode that was supposed to be uploaded in November. And before that, I don't even know how, but this is the thing about it. The third, or the second special one, it was complete. But the fourth special was not even completed. There was no colors in it. The title was all that was. I don't even know. I hadn't even seen it myself yet, but still, it was quite amazing that this individual managed to get their hands on this. The only conclusion I can at least assume how this individual managed to get the hand on this was that as in back in earlier G4, they had two times when someone hacked the servers, stole an entire half of a season of two different separate seasons. Let's say it's someone. There was either one person or multiple people that stole episodes, half the season from two seasons, but sold half of a season from two separate seasons from G4 and published them before they even had aired on TV. So is it possible that not this particular YouTuber, but this YouTuber could actually have found this somewhere online and downloaded and decided to post it on YouTube? Perhaps. There's at least that I can think of. But that is not all it. Some of the episodes that were supposed to be continued after the second and the third and presumably the fourth special was the fact that the main six was traveling on a boat on the sea, going to see somehow sea ponies. But before you ask, I don't even know if this particular sea ponies is the hippogriffs from G4 or if it's actually an actual sea ponies. I don't even know for sure. Except for that, from this first special when the Issy met Destiny, who was a sea pony. But there is one episode that was I really wish that they had complete, and that was a time travel spell episode. Of all things, we had only experienced two time travel episodes in from the G4. The first one was when Twilight, from only a few hours in the future, traveled back in time, and the second, how Starlight was trying to alter time. But this fourth special, or like this third time travel episode, I was like, what? Oh man, that. But that was not all of it. I can say this for as I guarantee it that if the series had continued, Allura wouldn't be the only female villain in a Tell Your Tale. Apparently, there was planned for another female bad guy in the in Tell Your Tale. They actually had a name, but I don't remember it. But still, it's unbelievable. Hasbro, you really screwed this up. Unlike many fans of the Brown fandom, who has very much enjoyed the T5 and this. Thanks very much, Hasbro, or Hasbro. Out to say, my gosh, it was terrible. It was pretty terrible, to be honest. I didn't even expect all this. I mean, when I first saw this YouTuber, when I came across by a random chance, and I was still very much, well, surprised that the word is second special, now the fourth special, and a potential possible time travel episode and all that, and including what they were supposed to introduce for sea ponies in Tell Your Tale in G5. Gosh, Hasbro, really, you really messed it up. Even though that was just out of ending that, they ended it without giving it any actual explanation or at least an answer to why it happened. Man, Hasbro, that sucks. That totally blows. But there's nothing we can do, unfortunately. Yeah, so, but still, of all the characters that we are familiar from the G4, Twilight was the only one that literally happened to give in their own. Well, I mean, other from her friends, Lily also had a speaking role or some speaking lines in G5 first movie, A New Generation. But that's pretty much it. When Discord, when he happened appeared in the comics, I was expecting that he could appear in the Tell Your Tale series, but nope, that didn't happen. That did not happen. And when Spike, a full-grown Spike, when he happened to appear in Make You Mark ending, I was blown my mind. Get this. When it first happened before the last chapter of Making Mark happened, there was pictures, a trailer of this new upcoming chapter, or at least the final chapter of Making Mark, with this purple dragon with part of the green claws and all that. People assumed that was either Spike's son, grandson, descendant, or even Spike himself. And boy, people really, when they find out it was actually Spike, I was what? Well, that's he shortly grown a lot since by the end of G4. That's a fair understatement. I mean, considering that we don't even know for a fact how many years that have when the last problem episode happened. We don't even know how many years between that happened and the coronation. There could have been at least 5 past years, past even 20 years or something. I don't know for fact. But having him to have him appearing in Make You Mark, I was epic. But one huge disappointment, different voice actor. Even when he made the final episode on G4, he still had the same voice actor, even though he looked quite much older. I thought, okay, I understand if there was maybe that he was still in something like a early pre-teener or early teenagers that he had even that the voice had even changed yet, or but at least okay, that would explain if we had a different voice actor in Make You Mark, that his voice is deeper compared to from G4. I mean, in a way that would explain it, but the same, I just don't know. In fact, that he was a dragon lord, but there was a. I was like, how did this become the next dragon lord? I mean, we know for this is a fact. The dragon lord title isn't just simply something that can be passed down from one person to next. They had to have this competition, like a race, to see who can actually get to the scepter first. But Spike was the only one, for fact, had been Dragon Lord twice. He was the Dragon Lord for a brief time before he headed over to Amber. But I don't really know if this had somehow changed at G5 that if well is how or why he was chosen as the next Dragon Lord. Maybe Amber felt that he was ready to be the next leader, or they changed that. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know about it since it was never explained. But Dragon Lord as was Spike in the G5, I was quite happy to see at least that he made an appearance. Even though he had aged. But there is one major discovery of when I saw this, that the dragons in the Isle of Scaly or Dragonlance literally had a Curie mark. The only two dragons that didn't have it, of course, are Spike and Sparky. Sparky makes perfect sense. He's after all, he's a baby dragon, and Spike is a full-grown dragon. Shouldn't he have his own? Well, I mean, it's possible. I mean, he looks similar in size to the other dragons, like Lava, Jade, Tumbleweed, or something like that. Shouldn't he also have the Curie mark himself? But there is one other small detail that some fans actually pointed out, that those other dragons that we saw in Make Your Mark ending, what if they weren't even full-blooded dragon? What if they were actually hybrids? You may ask, why would some people saying that they are hybrids? There are two things. One, the Curie marks. Two, they have hair. And for a fact, of all the dragons that we saw in G4, including Garble, and Torch, Amber's father, and the ones that when they would have this when the dragon summoned, there was no single dragon that had hair, except for those in G5. Is it possible that they are in fact hybrids? Because here's another thing. Not even Smolder didn't even have hair. Sparky of all, he's a G5 dragon, a baby dragon. Shouldn't he had hair if he was a dragon from Idle Scaly or Dragonlance. But no, he didn't have hair at all. But the other dragons that happened in Make You Mark did in fact have some hair. And that is quite so significant. Think about it. If Spike is from the G5 era, and he's a leader, and the previous generation, tons of dragons that did happen to appear either for one episode or two episodes or even multiple ones, but regardless, every single one of them didn't even possess a single strain of hair. And the ones that make you mark, boom, they have literally hair. Try to explain that. So there's a possibility that those dragons are in fact hybrids. If that is the case, that they in fact are hybrids, you may be thinking, wait, Lava, Jade, and the others, are they Spike's hybrid children? And that means they are the children of Rarity? Well, it's not like a possibility in these, but the fact is, they have been sleeping for a few hundred years. I presume they have been around since they are. I mean, I would presume at least that those dragons are roughly the same age biologically as Spike. So if they were to be the same age, close to Spike's age biologically, that would have been impossible for them to be children of him and Rarity. That would not be possible. Because if that happened, they would have been born when Spike was still as a baby dragon, which is would make no sense. But in fact, even if they are hybrids, it doesn't even exclude that the fact they cannot indeed have a pony parent. It might actually be a possibility that they could be hybrids. The fact that the children's parents are, they could just simply had a parent from pony, from other pony. Because here's the thing, even in the comics, there is actually Philadelphia, a major pony town, had a small neighborhood where dragons literally lived in peace with ponies. So is a possibility that those dragons along the time, because at the time when the Opaline was trying, when the magic disappeared, the dragons from, including from Equestria, left Equestria and went back to Dragonlance for safety. So is it possible? I mean, is it a little possibility that that the dragons in Isle Scaly could actually be hybrids, but not to Spike, but to some other ponies? That could be possibility because since they both have two quite significant changes, a cutie mark and hair, which is that the fact that Spike, he looked exactly like them, walks on all four legs, same height, same build, but doesn't even have hair or even a cutie mark. And in fact, another though, that Sparky, even though he's a baby dragon, he doesn't even have hair himself. But people wouldn't say, just jump in a conclusion right away that he is not a hybrid. Because who knows, maybe the hair doesn't even start growing when they're a bit older. That's possible. So is it possibility the chances for Lava, Jade, and the others, if they're hybrid, I may have to say is at least a strong possibility that those dragons could have been a hybrid from, well, maybe. The dragons in G5 are either the kids of Spike and Rarity, Spike and Sweetbell, and Spike and Starlight. Um, well, the fact is that might not be possibility indeed. Because, like I said, if those dragons are roughly the same age as Spike and Make You Mark, That would mean they also would have been born around the time as when Spike as a baby dragon, and that it's quite different. That and also difficult for the fact Spike and as a baby dragon and in from the beginning of G4 near to the end, and also Sweetie Belle is okay. We don't even know for a fact how old she is in the series from the beginning, but assumingly like she is like 10 or 12. So that means that she became a preteen mother to Spike. But even Sweetie Belle and Spike would have a child when she was very young. Wouldn't a child that would have been sent away to Dragonlance or something? Maybe like that, but I don't think Sweetie Belle. But then again, we don't even know for a fact if those dragons, Lava, Jade, and others are even the same age as Spike. They could be even be older. They could be younger than Spike, but they just look the same as him, the same body build and all. They could even be older than Spike, much older, but we don't even know. In fact, we don't even. This is not a guarantee that Lava and Jade and the other dragons that are making Mark are in fact hybrids. They can still be just a different species of dragons, just another kind of dragons that happen. I mean, this was a possibility that those dragons that did happen in Make You Mark couldn't just be a normal dragon, but just because in G4, when you saw in one episode tons of different designs of dragons and shapes, colors, and such. It's a possibility that they could have been dragons that they could have hair and some cutie marks without just never not being seen. There's also a possibility that the concept of dragon with hair and a cutie mark was never even thought of until back in G4. That's not as a possibility. So the chance of those dragons in making mark is hybrids between a pony and a dragon. I mean, the chances are slim, but it's always a possibility. But also, there's just could have been a whole new type of dragon that lives in Dragonlance. But since we don't even know for sure exactly, but the Dragonlance in G4 was could have been a vast land area for miles. But since in G5, Dragonlance or Isle Scaly had transformed from a barren desert-like environment to almost a lush forest jungle. So it's a possibility that those dragons could either be hybrids or even real dragons themselves. But like I said, we don't even know for a fact if the dragons in Make You Mark is hybrids or even a full blood dragon, but just a different kind. Because if we're looking in our world, there are actually stories of how dragons supposed to look like. If you're looking at the European dragons, they look like monsters. But if you're looking at the Asian dragons from China and Japan, they look more like a serpent type of dragon. So it's a different design. And also, like in some dragons in fantasy, can actually be like ice dragons, lightning dragons, fire dragons, or anything. So the dragons they make you mark couldn't actually be hybrids or a type of dragons that they never included in make you in G4 since we don't even know for a fact. But still, again, those dragons that make you mark has hair and a Q mark, which was not included in the dragons back in G4. And if it's Spike, who is the same build as the dragons from the G5, doesn't even have hair or even a Q mark. So there's a possibility that those dragons could have been from a whole different generation, or they could have been hybrids. But the chances for them to be the offspring between Spike and Rarity, or Sweetie Belle, or even Starlight, I mean, it's hard to say because, like I said, We don't really know for a fact how long they have been or how old they are, but they have been asleep for at least a few hundred years along with Spike and the other dragons. So we don't know for a guarantee on that or even confirm on it. But the chances for them to be hybrid, that would have been amazing. Because for what in G4, when long before G5 was even a thing, people, fans of the fandom made stores or shipping with Spike and Rarity having a dragon pony hybrid child. But before them, it was not like a confirmed if a pony and a dragon could even have an offspring together. Since they are two separate animals, like mammals and reptiles are two separate branches of the animal kingdom, which is genetically impossible, just saying. But the same that possibility for them to be hybrid, that would have been an epic, because it not only the fact that they confirm that ponies and dragons are capable of having offspring, but due to the fact that back in G4, many drum made designs of Spike and Rarity have a child. The one that's even the son, Apple Spike, in the Daughter of Discord, that was with the son of Applejack and Spike. So who would have been to say that the dragons in Major Mark could be hybrids? And if they are, who are the fact the parents? If are they in fact the offspring of Spike and Rarity? Even if they are, even if they would have been the offspring between Spike and Rarity, wouldn't they be much younger? Here's another thought. If Jade and Lava and those dragons that we have seen in Major Mark, if they happen to be the child or the children, the offspring of between Spike and Rarity, it's a possibility that that do be a hybrid with two types of DNA or two types of biology background heritage. Could it make that they aged a bit faster to happen? They could still be very much young, but their bodies aged faster than the regular dragons would. That is another possibility, at least, but I don't know. We may never actually get any conclusion of why these particular dragons have hair and cute mark when Spike don't. Perhaps it was just a whole type of dragons that there's like a majority, but who knows? I mean, we don't even know if those dragons are even hybrids. Who knows? They might even be not even be half like 50-50. They could still be full blood dragon, but with some pony DNA, like a long distant heritage or ancestry, with a small amount of pony DNA, which gives them the cue mark and the hair. That's not a possibility, at least. I can go on this for hours if I wanted, but yeah, I prefer not to do. So, wow, 1 hour and 8 minutes. So, I think it's me to end the stream here, and yeah. So until next time, people, on Friday, I really hope. So, until then, this is Fish Diablo signing off. Bye.